How's it? Peoi. There will always be someone who doesn't see your worth. Don't let that person be you. Keep it cool. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's especially the name, right? The name is so important.
Yes,
The
that's
name
your
you're
mana.
given. Yeah, that's the mana. And to kind of share about, since we're on that track, right?
Yeah.
So I was given my Hawaiian name from my mother, and I'll be totally honest. For a long time, I was ashamed of my Hawaiian name. My Hawaiian name is Mahina Mililani.
Wow.
So I was born on what we learned, now that we're learning about the Mahina for myself, right? I was born on a Mahealani moon, so the full moon, right? When I was born, and then she says she remembers it was a full moon night, and a bird flew over the house, a big bird. They don't know what it was, they just saw the shadow, and that was the night I was born. But I remember as I've gotten older, and you're around people, and everyone's kind of talking about their Hawaiian names.
Yes.
And I remember I was in the environment, in the situation where we were sharing our Hawaiian names.
Yes.
And you have like Ke Kaulike, you have Kaipo, you have
Yes,
all these
yes.
Kalani and all these things, and
Yes.
Kekai. They came to me out, and I said Mahina Manulani, and people laughed at me,
Wow.
and they're like, oh, and because we're talking about warrior being a warrior, and all these guys had these warrior-like names. And then I remember one of the teachers there, one of the old people who were kind of the main facilitating the workshop, basically was like, what kind of name is that? That's not a warrior name. And I got
It is.
pretty upset. Yeah, so I was pretty upset about that. But then at that moment, having people laugh at my name and made me want to just kind of hide away that name.
Yes.
For a long time. I didn't want to share it. People would ask, oh, what's your Hawaiian name? When people would ask my Hawaiian name, I'll use my dad's Hawaiian name.
Mm-hmm.
And so, oh, my name's Kahaulu,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to accept that Mahina Mililani. I felt like that wasn't a good warrior-like strong name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be honest, it wasn't until last year that I actually started accepting my Hawaiian name.
Wow.
So it took me, and that happened to me back in like 2007.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's just last year when someone asked me, what's your Hawaiian name? I said, Mahina Mililani. But the person who I told it to, they're like, wow, like what you just did, like, wow, that's awesome. Like, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives me a little more like oomph, like, okay, like
Yes.
I feel good about it, and I'm getting better at it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I like share one story because one of my students had, at the beginning of the year, he didn't know he goes, oh, I think it's pa'akai. So pa'akai is salt, right? But then later on it was something else. And when he said I said pa'akai, and everybody in the class was like, salt, that's salt. And words have so much mana. We can remember stuff from small kid time to where it affects us, even for me. And I said, pa'akai is important because back in the olden days, never have refrigerator, and pa'akai, the salt, would keep things preserved so that you could eat for days. So he is a preservative, and he is helping you to stay alive, and all this kind of stuff. And it was like that cool. He was like,
Yeah.
well, thanks, Kumu. You get my back a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like,
and that's part of helping people be cool, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to instill the strength into them, because everyone has that feeling of vulnerability, right?
Yes.
And then when they're out in the open and they're feeling vulnerable, that's the point where you gotta be like, hey, that's okay. Like when
Yes.
someone's saying like, I'm upset, I'm angry, you're like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like you can be angry. Like, having my oldest son is 6. And so right now, some days he'd be like, Dad, I'm so upset.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell him that's okay to be upset.
Mm-hmm.
Like why are you upset?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's going on? Because it gives them validation to feel those emotions rather than hide those emotions. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us sometimes, is that we're told not to show certain emotions.
Yes. Especially for men, right? Or boys.
I mean, I remember growing up, my uncle's telling me like, hey, don't be like that. Stop crying. But again, luckily, my father was very like, he's like, it's okay to be mad. Go do something. Like go outside, go run it off, go lift weights, go punch the punching bag. And he always made sure that we always um, channeled our anger,
Yeah. In the right
in
way.
a positive way, in a right way,
Mhm.
because it's there, right? And sometimes if we hold on to that anger, it's going to come out in a way that we don't want it to come out. So learning how to channel those emotions and that mana into a positive outlet is something that we all need to learn, and that's something that I've learned over the years. Is that's where all the creative stuff starts coming in, right? Like me being creative, doing graphic stuff, doing arts,
Yeah.
doing the videos, working out, exercising,
Yes.
cooking. All this stuff is my outlet, right?
My ka'i.
And
My ka'i.
like, what's some of your outlets, Tracie?
Well, my outlets is I sing, but you know, I kind of going through this place in life. Like this was a real stressful year in school. A lot of teachers had a lot of stress, and I felt like I've been powering through so much all my life that at this time during the summer, it was kind of like, whew, I need to
Yeah.
wind down and, like you said, take care of me, right? Take care of myself, and so just trying to stay present and stay
Yeah.
in this space and appreciate all of the things and people in my life, you know.
Yeah.
How do you do that as far as balancing all of what you got to do, your wife, your kids? How do you keep that pono, keep it cool? How do you keep that?
Yeah, for me, to be honest, again, I'm a very simple person. I don't need to do too much.
Okay.
My circle is very small,
Yeah.
intentionally, because then you can give time to things that matter. Your life always evolves, right? Like
Yes.
before I had kids, it was very different from now. I had a job and now I have my own business, right?
Yes.
So things are going to always evolve and things are always going to change. And for me, it's always the same thing like what you're doing right now, right? It's so awesome to hear that you're just taking time to take care of yourself, taking time to make sure that you are doing what you need to do
Yeah.
to surround yourself with good things too, right?
Yeah.
So for me, my family is everything to me. So I'm always being mindful of like, okay, well, how am I showing up to them,
It's good.
for them?
That's good.
Like, and some days it's not so great,
Of course, right?
and it's okay to tell them like, hey, today I'm not having a great day, and for them to also be like, okay, well, daddy needs some time, to do his thing and to his space
Yes.
to get back to feeling like himself again. But being around people who will understand you and get you and see what you need to do in order to take care of yourself and not make you feel bad about that
Yeah.
is when you're in the right place.
Ka'i. Mahalo.
So,
Mahalo.
yeah.
But as far as like the essence of who you are, because a lot of times to me it's so focused on either your mind or your body and yourself. But Hawaiians understood, like you said, that relationship with, the ancestors and all that.
Yeah.
What would you say about that from a Native Hawaiian perspective? I know you said you're learning, but what if people don't have that connection or don't believe in that type of connection? What would you
To
say?
the ancestors and to things beyond us, and I get this question sometimes in different ways, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, but then I'm also just being like, well, okay, if you don't believe in that, it's like, do you believe in yourself first?
Yes.
And all of a sudden they're kind of like, oh, okay, well, what do you mean by that? I was like, well, how do you feel when you're by yourself? When you're by yourself, all alone, what's going on in your mind?
Yeah.
And I tell them, you don't have to answer me. You don't have to tell me what's going on in my mind unless you want to, but I want you to just reflect on that because you are the individual, like you have to live with yourself, basically.
Yeah.
You live with whatever goes on in your head, whatever goes in your body, you got to live with that.
Yeah.
So I asked them, if you don't believe in that, just take some time to be alone and have some really deep conversations with yourself. Ask yourself the hard questions.
Yes. Yes.
And if you're too afraid to ask yourself those hard questions, then you need to work on some things.
Yes. Yes.
For us, as Native Hawaiians, right, we find ourselves in questions or wondering about that. We go to right? To
Yes,
look
yes.
for answers, to
Yeah.
kind of feel like, okay, well, and try to listen, right? Listen to what's going on around us.
Mm-hmm.
For people who don't believe in that, also, okay, well, listen to yourself, because we all know we have intuition. We
Yeah.
all know there's a voice in the head, right?
Yes.
Spend some time with that voice, see what they say, right? It goes back to that a little no ea, you call a little no keola, you call a little no kamake,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In words there's life, and words there's death.
Yeah.
So what kind of words are you saying to yourself?
Exactly. Exactly. And a lot of times I feel like some of the words that we're saying in here, or maybe it's fear or
Yeah.
whatever, I would never say that to my friends. And
Yeah.
okay, I gotta tell you this story. So I love, one of the things I love is, Dr. Strange. Dr. Strange.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what happened when his teacher was talking to him? She, like, I think she pressed him here, boom, and he came out of himself. It was like, poof. And what I do a lot of times, because the kids see me, they're like, oh, Kumushi talking to herself again. It's like some of the things that I say to myself when I'm all up in here, it's like, poof. And I talk to myself like I'm out here,
Yeah.
and I'm like, da 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 da. And it really helps me get that perspective, like you said. Even if maybe I might not be speaking to my kupuna or whatever it is, they can hear me. I believe that. But it's like, I'm like that, in the
Yeah,
Matrix,
yeah.
just like,
Yes.
so anyways.
But no, but I think that's where you shared right there. That's having those moments, right? And that awareness that you are having this conversation with yourself,
Yes.
Is so important, because then you're being very aware of, okay, well, what is going on with
Yeah.
myself?
Yeah.
And
Or what am I
there's
saying
a
to
lot
myself?
Yeah, what am I saying? Yeah, and there's a lot of people who try to turn that off, right?
Yes.
They don't want to do that. They don't want to spend time, so they're always keeping themselves busy and distracted.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like to be alone, or they're, when they are alone, they're keeping themselves busy.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. You're right.
Not worrying about, like, trying to slow things down, be quiet, and just kind of sit for a while. Yeah.
And mahalo for asking me that question, what am I doing? Because I saw this person posted something and they said, if you don't like you, you won't like me. So I was thinking to myself at the beginning of this year, I always was busy. I'm, by nature kind of like busy, and I'm going like 1,050 miles an hour, taking care of my kids and taking care of other people. And like I said, at the beginning of this summer, because we get 2 months, right, to spend, I felt like I was, I felt like that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you got to take care of you. Because if you don't like you and you're not taking care of you, who else going to take care of you? And I look at my children, I'm like, I like be here for my kids,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes back to taking care of yourself again, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that people around you, because it kind of goes against what everyone kind of talks about, or everyone expects out of you, right?
Yes.
They expect you to always be there and always be like the one to go to person and everything. But then,
That's me.
yeah, and sometimes you need a question. Someone needs to come in and go, well, who do you go to, right? Who's taking care of Tracie?
Yeah.
Right? Who's checking in with Tracie and making sure that she's not doing too much, or that she's not overextending herself so that she hits a wall, right? And that's where you need to find that support group. I'm lucky that, I have that support group.
Yes.
A lot of times it's myself. I gotten over the years, just gotten really good. Yeah, a lot of times over the years, just having those introspective moments with myself is good enough for me. But having that permission to go ahead and, reconnect with myself is also very important. Rather than being like, no, you can't do that. You gotta, we need you here. But having those outlets really has helped me throughout these years of learning what it means to be cool for myself.
What would you say about, taking all this kind advice, and, some people are like, back in the old Hawaiian days, my students are like, oh, kumu, that's primitive. And I said, prehistoric primitive. And I said, primitive. Hawaiians had doctors, they understood, because if you look at the culture, people were healthy. When the foreigners came, they saw healthy people. So who do you think are keeping those people well? There's doctors, get broken bones, get all that. And when I look around, I said, try go walk to the mall, go Pearl Ridge and look around the mall and look at how many people, not saying anything bad, but look at how many people are sick, look at their bodies, big, all of this kind of stuff. So for the medicines and far as medication, I don't know too much about Hawaiian medicines, but do you feel that if people need to medicate mentally or, hormonal or whatever, what do you feel about that kind of thing? Because there's a stigma to it. Like,
yeah, there's a big stigma to that, especially when it comes to especially mental health.
Mental health.
Mental health. It's a very big stigma against that. Within Native Hawaiian communities, a lot of different indigenous communities.
Yes.
Because, like when you talk about mental health, people think, oh, that's the crazy relative, right? The crazy cousin, the crazy auntie. But for me, I'm always here's a good story. So I remember one of my cousins, and he was known to be like the crazy cousin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I remember as a young one, when I was young with him, he was super he was one of the best cousins. Always playing his ukulele, always talking stories, really always happy. And of course, he went down the wrong path, drugs and so forth, which is a very common story that a lot of our families come across.
Yeah.
But I remember he was living on the streets, and I came across him on the streets, and he again was just kind of talking all kind of crazy stuff and not making too much sense to me. And I was trying to just talk with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember one time, and I started to be like, "Hey, remember when we were kids, you used to play music?"
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was like he came back.
Wow.
It was like he was like, "Oh, I remember those days. Those good times over at Papa's house. I was like, "Hey, where's your ukulele?" He was like, "Oh, I don't have an ukulele." I was like, but I remember just having that small moment,
yes,
right, showed me that it's all there. When it comes to mental health, I really believe that it really takes time to, before the medication and stuff, it's like, okay, well, let's hear them out, right? Let's talk with them.
Okay.
Let's connect with them again. Let's learn what's going on.
Yeah.
Because we all have mental health. We all have mental health. Physical health, mental health is all the same. It's all part of who we are. Some people need a little more attention.
Yes.
Right? And that, just like physical, some people need a little more physical attention for their health.
Yes.
And so from the
Guilty.
mental health, no, I'm sure. But I'm sure from the mental health perspective, it's like, okay, well, before we just start, because I think that's like the get-go, let's give them medication.
Yes,
right?
yes.
It's like, well, how about we take the time to learn about what's going on? Just have those conversations, even though it could be a hard conversation. See how they act in certain moments and in certain spaces, and why are they acting this way. And I think that's also just a way of being open. Yeah. But at first you always have to create that safe space.
Yes.
Because sometimes they don't feel safe to talk about those things. And making sure that people feel comfortable with you, and making sure people feel like, okay, this person is not going to judge me.
Yeah.
I can share myself and share what's going on and what I'm dealing with without being judged.
Yes. Yes.
And that's sometimes where people are looking for. They're looking for those spaces.
Yeah. I was thinking of a story when you said that, because one of my friends, we were talking about your posts, and for me, because I'm a singer, music, mele, sound is important. That's for everybody, right? But I'm like, hey, we vibe with your voice. She's like, I love his voice. I'm like, me too, I love his voice. And with your posts and stuff. And so my friend, he's a music producer, and I'm gonna do a short promo. I wrote one book, autobiography of my life, and I put it on audio book. So I put this book on audio, and I recorded it in his studio. And at the beginning of this year, it's probably like January or February, and I was going through, kind of a hard time in my life. And I said, Mike, his name is Mike. Mike, I only come over here for record music, for record stuff when I get a little bit, my heart a little bit sore or this and that. And he goes, yeah, Tracie is right. And I said, what you mean? He goes, yeah, that's right. He goes, he's a pianist, right? And he plays the keyboard. He goes, because we're music people, and music heals our soul maybe more than other people that maybe don't necessarily connect so much with music and that mana inside of mele.
Yeah.
And I was thinking back because a little while later after that, my little daughter, she's 13, Mililani, she was playing one of my songs that I wrote. And I walked into the room, and she didn't know, that I was just having these kinds of, it was a sad time, those sad days.
Yeah.
And I started to cry. And she was singing my song, and I started to cry. And after I said, mahalo ya oi tita, no kahimeni ana ya'u, thank you for singing it to me, tita. And she just kept playing it. She was like, oh, okay, mama, just like, because she's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said something about your cousin coming back for mele. So
Yeah.
what do you think about it?
No, song is always, music is a big part of my family.
Yeah.
It's always something that I always tell people, like, the best feeling is those backyard kind of kapila sessions.
Yeah.
When everyone's in a circle and everyone's just singing songs and everyone's just kind of laughing. That's like the best feeling,
Yeah.
And that is a healing feeling when you're around those, and it's usually around people that you love too, right?
Exactly.
It's all your ohana, it's your friends, and it's those moments that heal.
Yeah.
And it's and for my cousin, he was always the one walking around school with his ukulele. But then here he was walking around with no ukulele, So it was like, hey, where's your ukulele? Remember? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, he was, the words that he was saying was making more sense, right? Like he was, because before it was like all over the place, like gibberish. I couldn't even understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
But when I mentioned music, it was like, boom. Oh yeah, cause I remember when we did that, and I was like, oh, there you are, hey, like, how you doing,
Yeah.
and then, so it was, it's just amazing how much music does play a role, right? So I think it's all about vibrations, right? Vibrations is everything.
Right.
And how it makes you feel, so yeah.
My God, I love it. Like it's so awesome, bringing so much memories back,
Yeah, and when you mentioned about my voice and stuff, it's so funny because my brothers always trip out because now they're hearing people are sharing the Cool Project stuff, right?
Yes.
And they're all like, oh, dang, I'm like, when we hear that, it doesn't really sound like you,
Really?
Like, but then my wife says, no, that is you,
Yes.
Because with my brothers, it's when you're around different people,
Yeah.
like you sound a little different. But she was like, Dad, that's like the voice that I get to hear, or your kids get to hear, like when you're reading them a story or something.
My God.
Like it's like your calming voice. You're more like it's your natural voice.
Yes. Yes.
When you're not all like excited or something, jazzed up. It's more like you're just being cool, basically,
Yes, cool. And we get different voices, right, with different people, like our brothers, our sisters. Like, hey, why are you touching my toy or whatever?
Exactly.
Like that kind, right? Yeah.
And when you mentioned that a lot of the stuff on the Cool Project, right, is mostly just words and images. I kind of always want to be mindful that I never wanted to make the Cool Project about me. So that's why when you go to the Cool Project page, you barely see me. Right. It's because I didn't want me to be the focus.
Right.
Or in social media, a lot of it's, oh, look at me. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. I wanted the message to be at the forefront rather than the person.
Yeah. But the one you did was great. We loved it.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's what the brother looked like.
And so everyone's and my wife was like, oh wow, you made a special appearance, huh?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like I figured because I remember I asked people, right, like the community. Everyone's I'm very aware of the community, so I remember asking, like, does it matter if I don't show myself? Or because a lot of times people ask, like, or is there a team of you, who are working on it? I was like, to be honest, just me.
Right on.
Thanks for thinking it's a whole team working on it, because it makes you, okay, like that's kind of cool, but
that
it
means
is just
you're doing
me.
a great job, like awesome, right?
So it is just me, but at the same time, I didn't want it to be about me, right? And so every once in a while, I'll put myself out there, because it is good to have that, okay, who is behind all this stuff, and kind of reconnect with people. But at the same time, it's like, okay, look, here I am, and then I'm going to be stepping out for a while, kind of a thing.
Yes.
So,
what would you say about, because I know for myself, as far as the making videos and stuff, before I put videos out, sometimes I feel a little nervous, anxious, because people don't realize as content creators, there's feedback that comes back that's good, but there's a lot of feedback that comes back that's really not good. So
Yeah.
growing up, I was more of a people pleaser, kind of like just looking for outward satisfaction or people to validate me, like, am I okay? Do you think I'm okay? And during this time of this past 2 months of the summer, I really, really am living like what you said, the coup. You know what? It's me, myself, and I. Like, it's
Yeah.
me. I really gotta make sure that am I okay with me? Because it doesn't matter if he like me or she like me or he don't like me or they don't like me or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really coming to the place to say, wow, I gotta be good for me, right?
Right. Yeah. And for when it comes to as content creators, I still get very like anxious when I share things. Like when I posted that video of myself, yeah, I was like, oh, here we go. Like I guess I gotta post this. Um, so I still get those feelings.
Yeah. What do we
'Cause
do
for me,
about those? What about people? What can people do about that? Because everybody gets that, right?
yeah, and I think it goes back to understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay.
And believing in yourself, right? Believing in yourself is very big, but also connecting to the reason behind the intention behind what you're
Yeah.
putting out there.
Yes.
When you get individuals who are like telling you that they look forward to your message or look forward to your music, right?
Yes.
Or to your lessons and so forth, you got to show up. Those are the people who you're speaking to. You're not speaking to the other person who is criticizing you. Okay, you don't like my message, and that's fine. Then go somewhere else.
Yes.
But here's all these other people who I'm speaking to and are relating to me. So
Yes.
I want to focus on them. So for me, like whenever I'm creating stuff, and I was taught, I forget who told me this, but when you create things, you're just creating things for one person.
Who's that?
Just anybody, right? So you focus on
Your
I'm
audience or
focusing
you?
on your audience.
Okay.
So like you create an individual that you're speaking to, and that's who you're speaking to. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And then everybody else is gonna be that person in some shape or form. Because I remember one of my teachers says, when you tell one story to one person, it becomes one story.
Yeah.
When you tell a story to 1,000 people, it becomes 1,000 different stories depending on their background, how they feel that day,
Yes.
what they're going through. The story is going to be different, depending what's going on. But as long as that one person that you're speaking to, you're connecting with that individual, then that's all that really matters.
So would you say that as far as who you're connecting to, you said if you don't like what I'm doing, go somewhere else. And I mean, not telling anybody go anywhere else because that might not be the place for them right now. But there's this saying that says your vibe will attract your tribe, right?
Yeah.
And I used to be under the impression that, just people would just come to me and the right people will come to me or the wrong people will come to me. But maybe when I flipped it and I thought, maybe it's me that is attracting this kind of energy. If I change, everything will change. So how do you change the vibe so that you do attract those people that want to be with you? And of course, those people that don't, you can go somewhere else if you don't like me, whatever. But
Yeah.
how do you do that? Get that mana, that energy, that pull?
It really comes down to being able to relate to people. I really believe that like just finding that one thing that you can relate to them and seeing eye to eye, because we're all different. We all think different things. Yes, we relate in different ways, but finding that one aspect that we all want to jump on, right?
So are you saying you
Like-
find the one thing that connects us versus all these things between us that maybe we know jive with this person? But
Yeah, it's not about finding what we don't like about each other, right? It's finding about, what do we like about, what can we see eye to eye about,
Yeah.
and let's meet there. And then at some point and then if we grow from there, we'll grow. But at some point we might come across a bridge where things are not going to work out so well, and that's okay.
Yeah.
like I get I get friends who have totally different mindsets than me,
Right.
right? But we both connect. But we still connect, right? We still connect over exercise and
Good.
going to the beach and
Mhm,
everything,
mhm, mhm.
And I know that even though we see different things and think differently,
Yes.
if I need help, they're gonna be there,
Mhm.
And that's friendship right there. That's a strong pilina because yes, we're different. Yes, we see things differently, but we're still gonna watch out for one another,
Mhm.
you know, because and I think it's just from having that growth with people and having those conversations and building those relationships and that pilino with others and yourself is really important, and sometimes not every relationship is going to last forever,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's part of life, it's, and because sometimes we grow differently,
Yeah.
yeah.
How would you be maybe kinder to yourself as far as somebody told me before? I said, God, why are you so hard? Why are you so hard on me? Why are you so hard on me? And then that person said, you know what? I'm hard on you because I'm hard on myself.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, yeah, And how do you give yourself that break? Like, hey, you know what? Give yourself a break, Tracy. Give yourself a break, Daniel.
Yeah, for me it's going back to being aware of the language, right? Like when you're like just trying to like when you're running at that 150 miles per hour,
Right.
right?
Right.
And you're just like, no, I gotta go, I gotta bust through these walls and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's being like, okay, wait a minute, like what's going on? Like how am I feeling?
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of times when we just have that pump the brake just a bit, we kind of catch ourselves for like, actually, I feel like everything's everywhere. Like I feel like my whole life's a mess right now. It's just like I'm just all over the place. I'm not focused.
But you don't want to
Because I
say
get,
no to people too sometimes, right?
yeah, you don't want to say no to people, but then that goes back to being okay. Well, am I fully giving them my full self,
No.
or only giving them half of myself, or maybe even less, right? Because I'm being pulled in all these different directions, and that's where you can start having those hard conversations. I think people are very don't want to have those hard conversations with the people that they love. It's like, I'm just really tired. I just need to take a little break.
Yeah.
And when you have those, I think it gives the people that you speak to who you hope will support you.
Yeah.
It'll give them the okay to also do that.
Yes.
Because everyone, especially if you're surrounded with people who want to help you out, who always want to be there, sometimes maybe they just need somebody to do that and be like, okay, it is okay for us to just take a break and have a pause button,
Yes.
and rest.
Yes.
But again, it comes with the communication,
Yeah.
and that can be hard sometimes.
Yeah. What about your communication? Because one of the things that I have on my mirror, I have all these around my mirror, is all of these writings about myself. And at the beginning of this summer, like I was sharing with you, I told myself, you know what? I'm so sorry that this year was really hard, and I forgot about you. Maybe all of these years I was going 280, right? 280. I'm so sorry. I forgot about you, and I forgot to take care of you. And in the season, hurt my knee, like I can't walk too good. I got like health concerns, and I thought, you know what? If I gotta take care of myself, it's about me, myself, and I, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And and I think when you start to do that, you realize that your relationship with yourself affects the rest of the other relationships.
There you go.
It kind of just blooms from there. But it all starts with the self. So if you aren't taking care of your health, aren't taking time for yourself, then the people who you're trying to take care of is gonna experience that too. So for me, it's always been like, okay, how am I cool right now?
Cool.
Like am I feeling good over where I'm at and what I'm doing? If not, then okay, well, I need to reconnect. I need to refill my mana account again.
Yes.
And get back to that, and tell people and we have to get better at saying no.
Yes.
And we gotta surround ourselves with people who are okay with getting a no.
That's good.
So, and that comes from having those conversations, having those talks, and also just being open about it. you know,
Yeah.
because you would hope that the people who love you would listen to you and be like, you know,
Hopefully, yeah.
I want to, and that's what you hope for. And that's where if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You know, because again, you got to focus on what's best for you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're gonna have a harder time taking care of everybody else.
Yes.
You know, especially your kids, and that's where it starts, right? Like, you want to make sure that you're there for your kids.
Yeah, for sure.
And like as you mentioned it, you want to make sure that you are around for your kids for a long time. So that's right there is big enough meaning to do that, right? A big enough reason to be like, no, I need to take a break.
Exactly.
I need to take care of my health because this is my reason, and I want to stick to that. You know, so yeah.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Mahalo for you.
No, mahalo, yeah. No, I really appreciate you just reaching out, you know, like, and just saying, hey, you want to talk, you know? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's talk stories.
Okay,
So,
mahalo.
I'm always open to talk stories.
Okay. Maybe again sometime.
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
back to school. We got to go back to school pretty soon. You know, school's back in session. But man, I so appreciate you, and I so mahalo you from the bottom of my heart, and from my friends that watch your posts. They're like, oh, you going to talk to that guy? How you know him? I said, I don't know him. I just can go message him on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I just really mahalo you for all you're doing. You're doing such a great thing.
No, mahalo, Tracie. I really appreciate it. You know, it means a lot when I hear that. So I really appreciate it. So mahalo.
Okay. Take care, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, take care.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Bye-bye.